Yesterday, I posted a short video on YouTube talking about Ruby Franke, and I realized in the afternoon that there were two different stories going around, and this had to do with someone having a life-threatening experience while they were in jail. Now, the more I dove into it, I realized there were so many stories going around, and things were all confusing. Different news reports were being redacted because they had incorrect information. So I want to clarify today with the correct information from a quote from Ruby's attorney. So this will clarify everything that was misconstrued yesterday. A couple of news reports were saying that Ruby Franke was taken to the hospital with a life-altering something. But in fact, that was incorrect. The person who was having a life-altering experience, and this is according to Deseret News, and they have a direct quote from Ruby's attorney. The person who went to the hospital was actually Ruby Franke's business partner, who was arrested on the same day as her and up for the same charges, and that is Jodi Hildebrandt. Jodi Hildebrandt, after her hearing on Friday, suffered some sort of emergency. I'm going to read exactly what the quote says. The attorney for Ruby Franke, an embattled YouTuber, charged is seeking an expedited detention hearing, while her co-defendant and business partner claim to have suffered a medical emergency since being arrested. Jodi Hildebrandt suffered a medical emergency. Franke, who once ran the popular 8 Passengers YouTube family blog, is facing 6 counts of aggravated. Each count carries a maximum sentence of 15 years in prison. So for each count, you can get 15 years and a $10,000 fine. Now, Franke's attorney is requesting an expedited detention hearing, meaning they want to go over pre-trial conditions and bail as soon as possible. He is requesting September 14th as a new detention hearing date. So that's just a couple of days away. It'll be interesting. I'm sure we'll find out today whether that's going to happen. And I'm going to do my best to be there. But if they could possibly do what they call a secret hearing, in which case we won't know till after it happens. But the thing of it is there's two things happening at once. There's the bail hearing and the hearing that's the judge will give all the information about how the trial is going to proceed. That is happening in St. George. Simultaneously happening is the custody hearing, which is happening in Utah County, so which is Provo. And so it'll be interesting to see when these things happen. If the custody hearing happens first, then that will make a difference on the bail hearing. And I think that that is what the judge is waiting for, why they keep postponing, because they want to see. Because if Ruby gets even partial custody of her children, then that will change how much bail could be set for her, possibly. Because if you have the right to have custody of your children, that's a different story. That could play into the decision that the judge makes on how much bail he sets, or if he sets bail at all. The other question is whether or not Ruby or Jodi are flight risks, and that can determine whether or not they get bail as well. I think it's interesting that I listened to if you haven't listened to Jodi Hildebrandt's niece and her story about what happened to her with her abuse, and that's on Mormon Stories, that brings a lot of light to this subject. And basically, Jodi Hildebrandt is a therapist, and she had her license suspended for inappropriate behaviors. And as soon as she had her license suspended, she dropped her child off to her parents and she fled. So she does have a history of fleeing. And so I don't know. I think that she and Jodi and Ruby are in thick as thieves. So if one flees, I'm guessing the other will too. I don't know. To me, I personally would think this is a flight risk. I will say that all the information from Jodi's niece brings a lot of information to the table, and it shows the pattern of Jodi in and of herself. And then you add the fact that Ruby was buying into it all. In fact, I don't know at what point Ruby started being friends with Jodi, but the videos that show her and that she had with her children when she was still doing her YouTube channel, which had over 2.5 million subscribers at one point. Side note, there were definitely there. And so I don't know if that was Jodi's tendencies, that was Ruby's tendencies, that she then came in alignment with Jodi, and then they became partners and started this business of how to, how to get those kids, how to parent, or if they just came in alignment because they both have that same type of behavior for getting children to comply.
I was making millions, and I left it because my kids were being hurt. With entitlement, they were being hurt with people's advice, and they didn't have a mother up the front saying, I don't care what the world's opinion is, this is the truth, and this is where I stand. And fortunately, I had a chance. I had them in my home long enough to do it, and I'm not going to lose them. They're seeing truth, they're accepting truth, they're loving truth. And so this is my passion, is to invite you to stand in truth and put your opinions to the side for a minute.
This is what love sounds like. When you see someone hurting, you acknowledge the hurt. If your kid came to you on fire, would you say, I'm so glad you trusted me to tell me you're on fire, but if I put out the fire, that's going to really hurt and you're going to end up with scabs anyway, so I'm just going to love you where you are right now? No, you throw them on the ground and you start rolling them. You get a blanket and you start hitting the flames, and they're going to say, you're hurting me, you're beating me, you're controlling. It's like, no, dear, hold still. I'm getting the fire out. That's what a loving parent does. And because nobody will do it, it looks to the world crazy. And because they've never been loved before, it looks like I'm angry. To them, it looks like I'm controlling. It looks like I'm militant. It looks like I'm a monster. It looks like I'm mean. It looks like I'm full of hate. It looks like I'm not accepting it, because they don't know what love looks like or sounds like.
Well, now that we've seen the condition of her children and the allegations against her, we now know what her techniques are for getting children to comply. That's a question that's going to be coming out. But I will say this, it's disturbing. It is so disturbing. And I think that, I feel so bad for Jessie, and that is Jodi's niece, who was abused 14 years ago, and no one would listen to her. No one would believe her, or if they did believe her, they wouldn't do anything about it. Like, it reminds me of Larry Nassar. Remember Larry Nassar, the doctor who abused all those gymnasts for all those years, and as allegations would come out, well, I mean, he's a doctor. It's just a medical procedure. So y'all just need to get over yourself. That's kind of the way it went. I remember reading clear back, I don't even know when, there was a Reader's Digest article about Larry Nassar way a long time ago, where somebody was trying to whistleblow about the abuse and no one would take them seriously. What is wrong with our society that we don't look into these victims, that we somehow put a doctor on a pedestal and have a hard time, like, second guessing their actions? I am astounded. I think that Jodi has some major issues, as well as Ruby. And this case is, we've only just scratched the surface. I will continue following it. I will be in court. if I can find out in advance when those court cases are, and I will keep you informed. So I will see you again soon. See ya.